Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Ocean Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 120. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for news recap number 168. So, quick summary of some of the content from the past week in Star Atlas. There are actually some related things. Website Decrypt had a couple articles about gaming coins and other crypto game studios closing down. The big announcement from Star Atlas was their town hall, where they went over a few topics. And then on Thursday, there was an economic forum, and that was pretty much it. But that doesn't need to be much else because the town hall was so massive. So I'll get into that. But before I get to that, just a couple quick things about things I'm working on in Star Atlas. Again, I want to always remind people that my website, intergalacticherald.com, is a great resource. In addition to finding this podcast there, I do have many other resources related to Star Atlas. I have a Star Atlas beginner's guide, directories of different Star Atlas community efforts from guilds to builders to other content creators and other stuff like that. I do also have my kind of newer thing, which is a AI summary of the Star Atlas community events in a recap form. So please do check that out again at intergalacticherald.com. Also have two other projects I'm working on. One is my Star Atlas merch store called Intergalactic Gear, found at intergalacticgear.com. Open for business, selling just a few products, mugs, some wall art. Hopefully get back to adding more products there. Unfortunately, doing a lot of different things related to Star Atlas, and this is all behind my business and family and things like that. Do also have a merch survey there, so I'd love to get any feedback from anyone about things you may be interested in purchasing. Again, intergalacticgear.com. And then the other one that is on a to-be-determined basis is what I call a non-guild, basically a community for Star Atlas gamers who don't want to join guilds, nevertheless to hang out, talk about Star Atlas and things like that. That can be found at intergalacticcoalition.com. It's in the process of just seeing if there's enough interest to start that, so I have an interest survey there. If that's something you'd be interested in, please do check out intergalacticcoalition.com. So let's go ahead and get into the bulk of the content. So again, as I mentioned this past week, there were a few different things. One, just as an aside, but nevertheless related, a website called Decrypt had a couple articles. One was about other game studios in the crypto Web3 space that have closed down recently, so they went through each one of those. I've seen a few things on Twitter, but I haven't really been following it. So it was a great article just to read about other things that unfortunately, for one reason or another, are no longer being actively developed. I found it really useful. They also had another article about the top 100 tokens and how that no gaming tokens, or at least maybe one, but have dropped out of the top 100 tokens. So again, it was just nice to hear some kind of related things, not just totally focused on Star Atlas, but the crypto Web3 gaming space, because there had been many posts about people or different studios closing down. So I included those in my news recap if you want to take a look at that. The big news and the lawn news from this past week was on Wednesday. Instead of the Star Atlas Brew, they had the town hall. So traditionally, town halls have either been one of two things. They've either been announcements I shouldn't say announcements, but releases of different products. And Star Atlas has gone away from those. They seem to be more of announcements and updates on things they're working on. They seem to have the cadence of every 6 months, so one in the middle of the year, one at the end of the year before they go on winter break. So this one definitely felt into the announcement category, though. They did surprise everybody by actually releasing a new product, which I'll get to in a second. Yeah, 3.5 hours. So it was definitely long. So the best way, if you want to, first of all, you can listen to the entire town hall on Star Atlas TV YouTube channel. They did a recording, so that's great. There has been a couple of different content creators doing recaps, myself included, so obviously I'll self-promote my own. If you go to my website under recaps, you can find an AI audio summary of that. I guess there's a text summary, but if you just want to hear an AI read it to you, either way. He did a report on that, and Star Atlas themselves put out a Medium article that kind of had the highlights. So lots of good ways to go over and get much more detail. So I won't spend a lot of time, but I will just briefly go over the three main things. It pretty much broke into three sections. I don't know if they were each an hour, but at least three. So I'll just do literally just the quickest summary, because again, there's lots of other places you can get much more in depth. So the first one they did was the discussion of the C4. So this is the improvements to the Sage web browser game, which will ultimately go into the Fleet command. And I know have always said it as a browser game, but since they are potentially moving it to Fleet Command, which would be in UE5. I'm starting to get the sense, and the team I think is starting to use this language, that the Sage product is more of the economy aspect of the Cybernation metaverse, whatever you want to call it. So it may have a web browser component, it may have a UE5 component, but it's really more of the places that you interact. Now, will all of these things eventually come into the UE5 version? Perhaps, but it is so many years down the road from what they are showing that we'll see. And there's still potentially the difference between individual ship or individual crew. That sure feels like that's always going to be in UE5. So some more of the economic things, the mining, the scanning, the movement of resources, that kind of still feels like it's always going to be part of the economy. But again, who knows long term if literally you can zoom down into your fleet and then zoom up to see the whole picture, and that's how they differentiate the two products. And maybe they're not even different products, maybe it's just different user interfaces. But regardless, today the biggest part of this C4 was how they're going to improve the current Sage one, and the C4 refers to 4 different things that relate to improvement. So one is combat, another is claim stakes, another is crafting habs, and another is council rank. So real briefly on all those, and I'm going to actually go in the order of simplest to hardest. So to me anyways, the simplest was the council rank, and that's just now finally bringing some progression thing to things, whether that be crew or ships. This has been talked about for a long time, and it was actually near the end, so it was kind of short, but yeah, it's coming. But my takeaway is, again, this is where you now have permanent progression with things. Maybe crew, but could be other things. Claim stakes, those do already exist within the game, and right now you just stake them in kind of like the faction, similar to the faction fleet, and you just get some resources. But it sounds like in the future, as part of this release, you'll actually apply them, I think, to planets. I'm not sure if they can go on star bases, but I think planets. And then it sounds like for the first time, you'll actually be able to do things like buildings, and then things are produced. And it sounds like instead of just the 4 current things, the food, ammo, toolkits, and food, there'll be a lot more. So definitely feels like this is a natural progression, but also a vast expansion to their interactivity within the game. Crafting habs actually had been mentioned before, but only very vaguely, and it was made a lot clearer that they're really basically same as claim stakes, but this is where I think they're only going to be on star bases, and then this is the crafting part. So it sounds like the current way you craft is you'd go to a star base, but in the future you would actually craft yourself, so you don't use the star base necessarily, you craft within your crafting hab. So again, not 100% clear. They haven't existed before, so it's a little vague to truly make heads or tails of that. And then the big one was combat. But in the process of talking about combat, they actually really expanded the entire, I guess we'll call it infrastructure or scope of the game. So right now we're moving our ships, which are in fleets, and we're doing a few things. But apparently the number of resources we can mine is going to gigantically expand. The ships will have configurations. The number of star bases will totally change, and the whole map's changing, and there'll be regions and core systems and things like that. So going from basically a point on a map that we say is a star base to, I think, again, for planets, because that's where the claim stakes, I think, go, and asteroid belts and gas giants. And so just a massive expansion of, again, I'm struggling with terms, objects, things you interact with. They showed a few different things on maps, but then as I realized, I don't think this is the actual user interface. I think this is like the structure behind the user interface. Again, there was lots that was hard to, it was great to hear it all, but it was really hard to bluntly make sense of much of it. So it was great to, and they did say they'll have Atlas bruises in the future where they'll drill down more. And then finally into the combat, it sounds like there's this concept of like regions, but then fleets, and you could attack star bases and destroy them and then take them over. So there was a lot. I have to admit, there was a lot to C4. I'm going to stop there because, again, you can listen to yourself. You can read the other reviews. Anyways, then they talked about the UE5, and this was more of on lines of the kind of ongoing natural progression of kind of monthly releases. So they went over a bunch of different things, and I've completely forgotten what those are. So, again, go check out the resources at intergalacticherald.com. Look for news recap number 168 for other things. And then finally, they showed something they had talked about before, which is a product they're calling HoloSim. And I guess the best way to describe this is it's the Sage game, so the web browser interface, but simplifying and removing the crypto components, but the crypto components are still there. So StarOS seems to be positioning this as a free-to-play, but also an entry point to start getting involved with Star Atlas. So you don't have to have a crypto wallet, even though there is one behind the scenes. You don't have to buy anything. You can just start. You're given some resources. The time to accomplish things is radically reduced, so you can do things faster than you can in the current Sage. So I think travel is way faster, crafting is way faster, mining, things are just faster. And you can actually progress up to maybe not buying ships, but redeeming or crafting. Again, there's a lot that wasn't 100% sure, but it also has the combat element. It has a AI that you can ask questions about the game and get it back. And it has, call it a tutorial, but mainly here, go do this, go do that. And so it really walks you through. And it sounds really very intriguing. And so it was released as of the thing. So it's available, but it's still in kind of beta to work things out. So there was no like public release, but public to anybody can get to it because it's just on the internet, but they weren't promoting it outside this town hall. It's a very interesting concept and definitely something to look at. Yeah. So I think that's it. And I'll have some thoughts about the whole thing in a second, but that was the key 3 parts of the town hall. Then on Thursday, the monthly economic forum occurred, and they went in through pretty much more of a Q&A. They talked about some of the stuff, but they really opened it up for community questions, mainly talking about the C4 things, so anybody could ask any questions. StarOS TV also has a recording of that, and I have done another AI audio summary, so you can get that too. Again, a big week. When you combined the town hall with the economic forums, it was 5 hours of content, video, audio, demos, charts, things like that. So it was a substantial amount of information shared by the team this last week, which is a perfect segue into kind of my thinking on the state of Star Atlas. And I guess I need to preface this so it doesn't come off wrong, and I have to preface it too by saying this is just me. It was too much. It was literally too much. I do admit I listened at 2x speed. I could not have found 5 hours of time to physically listen to those. So I admit I was listening at 2x. So I know that makes it hard for my brain to process. But again, I just could not find 5 hours this last week to give to it. So again, it was just too long. So it's even, and then I read the StarOS Medium article, and I read Iphia's guide and listened to my own recaps. So you add all that up. And again, I think it's just literally just too hard to take in. There, to me anyways, were just too many concepts that were completely too hard to fully comprehend them. The combat, I know they explained it. I don't understand. The expansion of the map blows my mind, but it makes sense. We need more space, physical space. You can't have just these few star bases you want, and again, to explore. But it was like the difference between tens and then hundreds or thousands, and then they added in ship configurations, added in a lot more raw materials, a lot more crafted components. Again, just overwhelming. But I say that only as somebody trying to understand it. The team obviously has been working on this either from the initial game design, ideas they've had, and they were able to implement these and start building the things. And so it does make sense. And claim stakes with buildings, and what does that mean? And then crafting habs on star bases, and then combat and destruction. I can't comprehend it all. I literally, even as I'm now talking, I'm getting stressed. I don't know. And I guess that's an okay, but I'm still stressed. I'm still stating my feeling. It was just too much. I'm also struggling with the idea of these just too big of changes. I think I mentioned a few podcasts back that C4 has 4 components. Each one of those alone seems like something that could be just done fully. Now, the one thing I don't know behind the scenes is, felt like obviously combat needed more places, so maybe that's where that comes from. Crafting needs more things. That also makes sense. So maybe there was no way to split this out because the claim stakes and the crafting habs do different things, I'm assuming. I think, again, the claim stakes are where you get your resources now. Maybe you can still mine, I'm not sure, but sure feels like these are the things. And it does actually much more fit with classic RTS type things where you have the economy point, you have factories. So maybe over time it'll like, oh, I get it. But it's conceptual right now. The crafting habs seems like the natural progression away from crafting at a starbase where you have it and you can improve your own thing. So again, not equal, but unique. So that also makes sense. Combat, I don't get it yet. But again, it could just be my lack of comprehension. And the council rank, like I alluded to, was mentioned, but again, I just flew over my head at that point. And that was after hearing all those other things. The UE5 thing sounds great, and there was stuff mentioned there, but now we're on hour 2, and so that didn't register very well. And then the final thing, the Hall Sim, has been mentioned before, was more straightforward, but after 2+ hours, again, I'm like, okay, I'll just log in and figure that out, because of everything, that's the only thing that as of now we can actually interact with. Everything else is still theoretical, conceptual, and vaguely, yeah, we're working on it and should have something out in a few months or something. I guess to summarize, and again, I don't want to come off as being negative, but it sure feels like it was great to get the update, but almost to the point of, yeah, again, too much to comprehend, but I don't know, almost some cognitive dissonance where I'm like, I just can't deal with it, so I'm just going to not think about it. And I hope this isn't getting to be the point of being jaded to the fact that we're now talking 3 or 4 years since my involvement, but I think definitely since the white paper came out. And this is all incredibly promising. And when you just don't try to figure it out, but just soak it in, it all makes sense. You need more parts of space. You need more configuration in space. And the team has been very open about that. They want to stop it where one person, even a whale, can do everything. And that's true. I feel like with moving and mining and crafting, I guess I do wish I just did one thing. And I've said in the past that my game feels more like I would gravitate toward the claim stake options of setting up factories and buildings and something like that. That feels pretty good. I'm not sure on combat. Maybe that'll change. But again, there's some people I'm sure that want to do combat, and there's some people. Yeah, again, it's really figuring out what you want to do as a gamer, and then go doing that one thing. But realizing the game is so vast that there's all this other stuff. And again, that is an awesome goal and an awesome vision. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, it's just being overwhelmed. My one constructive criticism would be, based on how they had 3 topics, C4, UE5, and Hall Sim, those could have easily been, or to me, could be split up an hour each, once a month, get us all excited about that, talking about it, then dump the next thing on us, talk about it, followed up with a month later of the rollout of the next version of UE5, or again, just showing us Hall Sim and then saying, hey, it's ready to go. And again, I think my gut is telling me the outcome of all this is really, it's all going to be about Hall Sim. And again, they wanted feedback and things to make it better before they want to release it. So that's all great. And then maybe only one little picking point. It was alluded to that there's another town hall coming, and whoa, you're going to really like that one. And I'm like, really? Right after you tell us this town hall is awesome, you're already teasing another one? And that's fine, and it could be something, but there was that interview a month or 2 back with the CEO, Michael Wagner, and he said, July has got this thing, I can't tell you about it. And I'm like, okay, it's obviously not this town hall, so there's still something more. And again, it all makes sense once it occurs, but I don't need to know about the July thing. You got so many things here, and now I feel like already it's move on to the next thing before I can even comprehend or really understand, because it would be awesome to learn more about combat, because one thing they mentioned is there was going to be destruction, and this was actually brought up a little more in the Q&A at the Economic Forum. And then it was subtly mentioned that the whole idea of maybe the high-risk zone where you lose your ship, maybe we're not going to do that anymore. And that's been one of the foundational things mentioned for years. And I'm not disagreeing with modifying it, but it is, I don't know, something isn't sitting right with me this weekend. And maybe it is just being overwhelmed with so much information that and maybe it's just me, I just want to come in, learn some stuff, get excited, see how it's moving forward. But other than Holocim, which, I guess I can try, but if it's meant to get people interested in Star Atlas to then maybe go into Sage, and I'm already playing Sage, and I already own ships, and I already know how the automation tools, and it's being tested. So there's not even they said they were going to either gain things, or there'll be quests, or there'll be a purpose. Each one of these sessions or seasons or whatever will then have a purpose, and you can just level up and go do that one thing. I guess maybe it's like a single player campaign. I don't know. Again, I guess maybe in the end that it's like enough information was presented, but it was all so vague enough to not really, I don't know. I'll stop. Yeah. Overall, cool. But I wonder if I'll be saying that next week on the same podcast, if we've already moved on from it. A couple of last things to just bring up, and these are more questions that I couldn't answer. But one was, I really didn't understand what the point of combat was. And the idea of destruction, maybe not of your ship, but of all your configurations to the ship. And then it was mentioned in the economic forms. We want to make the destruction of things like painful, but not that painful. When you have $1,000 ship and maybe you lose $100, and I'm like, I guess if I have $1,000 and I lose $100, no, that still doesn't sit well with me. So I'm like, am I going to want to do it? And again, there may be some people that's the risk and that's some motivation. But regardless of all that, if what they say, the combat's atomic, and I thought it said somewhere that maybe both ships will be destroyed. And I'm like, what's the point of that? So again, this could still just be early concepts, but I want to learn. It was mentioned that everybody's really been looking forward to combat, but what was presented doesn't sound like any combat I've been experienced. And again, I'll just use my RTS as an example. I might build up tons of ships or little guys and send them out, and they all get destroyed, but my factories are still building more. It's that endless cycle, so you don't even really care. If you're playing a shooter and you go in, you get killed, you just respawn. So there's really no stake to it, and there's definitely no real world money implications. So I'm like, again, if this is the way you gain resources, okay, but if it's people who like combat attacking my ship because I'm an explorer trying to transport things, well, then I'm just not going to go where I can get attacked. So if there's only resources that I have to get out there, I don't know, might not be interested in or care about doing that. And this leads me to the last point, is more of a question, is are there enough current Sage players to support all of this stuff? Because I can't remember what the daily active user count was, but if you have so many more planets and so many more places and so much more materials and so much crafting and so much this, and then you throw in the combat idea that you could lose things, I agree with it as a game design and as a concept, but I don't know why I want to leave the safe zone. And yeah, I don't know. And again, it's not that this isn't the development that sounds great and moving forward to this grand vision. Is there enough people to actually pull this off now? And yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. And again, it hasn't come out. Nothing's set in stone. Nothing has been tested. Nothing's been baited. There's so many steps to go there. But again, it's nice hearing things, but I came away with way more, not even questions, but just like, I'm unclear of where we're going. And again, it's not that it isn't there. It's just I couldn't connect all the dots. There was so much stuff and dissimilar stuff. Holocim is a different aspect. So maybe to leave on a positive note, everything I just said is me, not what Star Atlas has said they're trying to build. What they said they're trying to build actually aligns perfectly with what they showed. It's just a lot to take in, a lot on the next step, and so on and so forth. And maybe that's fair enough. You presented it, we got it, now we can start talking about it. But I kind of go back to the rollout of local markets and the rollout of faction fleets. A lot of information was given beforehand. Things came week by week, and finally it was released, and it worked, or it got quickly fixed. And now it's, wow, local markets are really cool. And fleet rentals are really cool for people who can rent. There's so much was said, I don't know what the next step is. So I'll just stop talking at that point because, again, overall, still great to hear all the information. And maybe, again, multiple Atlas brews coming up that deal with single topics that I can take an hour and kind of get my heads around and see how it connects to other things and hear the rollout process. Maybe that's just what I'm looking for. So anyway, so the final thing I just want to talk about, my journey, again, trying to craft a Mamba X, though I will admit now with all the things we said, I'm a little concerned I might get everything done before the new stuff rolls out. But I guess I realized those raw materials will transfer over. So maybe my ultimate goal to get a Mamba X is no longer there, but I can use these resources to, I don't know, maybe build buildings or something. So I haven't thought it fully through, but I'm like, stick with the plan and see. And I'll be blunt. Also, there's no release date, so who knows? So I'm not going to stop with this plan to get a Mamba X, knowing that the resource is there. And actually, as a quick aside, that is one cool thing. So long as they're within the game, they all still have things. So far, Star Atlas hasn't removed anything. So ships are still ships and resources are still resources. So that's good. So anyways, in that process, I was trying to move, I'd mined all the carbon I needed, and it was like 72 million. And as of this week, I finally have moved it all back. Yay. And I actually felt really cool doing that. That was great. So then I'm now reinforcing my other strategy, which was preparation. Go get the resources that are farthest away, which are on the most risky places, and start moving that. So that was mining diamond. So my little miner, the Armstrong tip, has been out there doing it very slowly because mining diamond is harder. So it's like a four times harder type of thing. So it's been slowly making progress, eating up a lot of food, but that's fine. The local market's helping and it doesn't feel too costly. So anyways, so I decided to take my fleet that had been moving the carbon and now send it out there to both take food, take resources out, and then start bringing that diamond back. Two things immediately became problematic. One, it's very far away. Wow, it takes 3 hours to subwarp out there on this fleet. So I guess that makes sense. It's farther away. So that's great. And what was the second thing that was weird? Was it fuel? No. Food? I don't know. I was taking out resources. Oh, I needed to put more in my stockpile. So that was just because I'm running out of things. I had to restock that. But anyways, yeah, so it's moving diamond back. It's taking resources out. And I think once I run out of resources to transport, I'm going to stop the transport fleet, send it back out there, and have it mine diamond until it runs out of those resources, and then head back and do transport. And hopefully, what I'm hoping is that kind of boosts up the amount of diamond, and then I can go back to using just the miner who doesn't have to use ammo, but does have to use food to finish it up, but I'm starting to bring it back. Now, getting back to that whole thing, I've been, a dilemma is, should I just sell it at the marketplace, local market, use the Atlas to buy it? And I still haven't done the full research, but I'm leaning towards still moving it myself, partly because I did a little calculation. I thought it was less fuel, but that was on a short run, not on this massive run, which I'm sure is using more fuel. So that calculation needs to be done, but I was doing it before with the carbon, so I'm just going to keep doing it with the diamond. So that's what I'm doing right there. So that's pretty much wrapping it up. So just to end, again, thanks for listening. Totally, again, open to anyone to be a guest on this podcast with me. Love to talk about the week in review. Also, totally available to highlight other content creators if you want to come in and chat, or other builders in your projects. So please go to intergalacticherald.com, look for my contact page. You can reach me that way, or of course you can direct message me on the Star Atlas Discord. And then while you're on the Intergalactic Herald website, please do check out the other Star Atlas resources I have, the beginner's guide, directories of other Star Atlas things, the recaps, obviously this podcast, and soon to be hopefully some other things that I've been working on within Star Atlas. And then once you're done there, please go to Intergalactic Gear, my merch store, check it out, buy a mug, or just fill out the merch survey. And then if you'd really like to hang out with other Star Atlas gamers, jump over to intergalacticcoalition.com, fill out that interest survey there. Once I get enough people, I'll start working on building out that community. It will be a paid community, and that is mainly to offset the price of the software I want to use. It isn't Discord. I want to do a different platform that's not chat-based but more discussion-based, gives you email alerts when conversations you're interested in have responses, so you really can not have to check it every day, only check when you want to. So please check that out. And that's it. Thanks for listening. Hope to my StarOS Week in Review. Hope you have a great week ahead. This is Matt with Intergalactic Herald.